Hi, Dan. Thank you for being here today. I'm really glad that you could join us. When I came across your profile and the whole work that XGC is doing, I was quite intrigued. So, I want to start off with your background. You have led multiple startups and had successful exits. So, if you could talk a little bit about that and how that is impacting your work right now with the way you're leading XGC today.
Yeah, I started back in the 90s for a tech company. I was at a different food company. I was the third customer of the startup, and I joined them and I gained professional services. And then we exited in 2001, 2002. We exited the company. We sold it to another warehouse management software company. It took us over. So I was like, I think, employee number five in the company. So it was a first time experience kind of going through that whole thing. Almost every company I've worked for has been a startup along the way, or a scale up. I think after I was in the different industries, many different industries, and I've worked globally. Most of my career has been spent just launching these startups, guiding them through critical phases, consistently navigating challenges. Technology changes, which is constant kind of thing. Getting ready for market readiness and while we've had successful exits and stuff, I've had a lot of bloody noses too. So, which you need to have, whether that's, for the most part, one of the things I did learn along the way with customers, which I think is key for anybody in the founder business, is you have to be able to walk away from a customer, especially in the beginning. It has to be the right customers. When I was in the steel business and we were new to the industry with our software and a very complex industry, very complex software, I created a refund kind of policy, which was you'd only pay for, we would go through a discovery period about configuring the system and getting it ready. And if it wasn't a match for you and it wasn't a match for me, we'd give you back your deposit, less the expense of our consulting, guys on site consulting, and we'd give you the documentation of everything we had to do. And that really gave comfort to these large corporate customers, especially we're a startup, right? So who wants to deal with us? Oh, you got one customer, oh, you got two customers. Like, it doesn't matter that our customers were, either hundreds of millions in sales or $1 billion. It didn't really matter. People would look at how many customers you had. And the same thing happened when I was at Care Relay. We went into a pilot, it took a long time to get a hospital, and still, like, then COVID hit and all the financing and all the pilots dried up. So, every hospitals were focused on that. That was a bloody nose. But we recently sold that to XGC, and we were going to go down the path of implementation in Kenya for a hospital. That didn't work out, but that led us to the carbon credit business. So you have to be open to pivot your company. So you may have a core technology. I think the Gordon Graham had a great, he wrote a lot of books on software. I think they're still applicable today, crossing the chasm inside the tornado. And one of the analogies I had, which we used at all the companies along the way, which is you're a bowling alley, right? And you hit the first pin. And whatever that may be for you as a startup person, that's maybe your little vertical that you started with. But that knocks into another pin, and you have to be adaptable to go to that other pin because that may be the thing that gets you across the chasm. So that's kind of.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I want to know a little bit more about XGC ERP. So, what problem is that solving? And what is Carbon Coin, as you have coined it?
Yeah.
And what early traction did you see from your initial customers that made you feel like, okay, this is a viable business model?
Right. So we're in a very difficult sales channel because it's government related. We're really government sales level. The initial problem I discovered and why I decided to pivot the company in that direction was the carbon credit industry it's very complex, it's inefficient, it's full of fraud. Many of these project developers came, they raised money, especially with tribes and communities in these countries, and then they kind of abscond with the money and leave the people kind of holding the bag on the project. And I didn't think that was right, and trying to help them. And I said, well, manufacturing carbon credit is no different than any manufacturing I've done. There's a process. If you want to take ISO compliance or whatever, there's a process that has to start from the beginning of the manufacturing to the end of the manufacturing to sales. And you need a chain of custody, and finance seemed to be a big issue with everything. Who has the money? Where's the money going? How come the guy who's driving around a new G-Wagon and the project isn't going off, right? So there's all sorts of things like that. So we said that we wanted to create a solution where the chain of custody of data, whether it's satellite or other source data, primarily for us, it's satellite, and that's driving all the way through to the finished product, which for us is a tokenized coin. Okay. And the idea of the coin is that one is different than other coins that are on the marketplace. The idea for us, we haven't launched the coin yet. We have to get to a certain critical mass with the projects we're working on. But the idea is that the coin will become liquidity in the local marketplace. And other coins are ethereal. They don't mean anything. There's nothing behind the coin. In our case, there's a 1 ton of carbon credit. So there's 1 ton of carbon offset equals 1 coin. So there's an actual asset behind that coin. Now, whether the coin is retired, consumed by a company for use, whether it's flying a jet or whether it's a ship at a port, or it's going to be used as a currency locally, by farmers and rangers and community people to be as it becomes a local currency, which is what I'm hoping that it will become to provide this, trickle down the money. That's what we're hoping.
Thank you so much for sharing that. So like you mentioned, so last year voluntary carbon credits market like slowed down, and then the regulation driven markets picked up speed. So over the next 3 years, which part of the carbon credit market do you think will grow the fastest, and what will drive that growth?
I think the next 3 years we'll probably see a strong surge in demand by compliance. It's still going to be a government driven response. In Europe, we saw this last year that shipping companies that wanted to bring ships into a European port had to pay a carbon tax for the ship's distance and travel. They have a whole calculation for it. But if a ship left Hong Kong with containers and arrives in Amsterdam, they have a whole calculation, that Maersk would have to pay to dock that ship or be penalized, right? Or be fined if they haven't. So we see how our system can insert itself into that by fulfilling contracts for these companies or countries that they're, if they're working with, Uganda, they're buying our Uganda product and they're shipping it, they're buying the coin or they're buying just the credit certificate, depending who they are, and they can consume it very easily. And everything's tracked for that. So I think that that's going to be very key for this thing is this. The marketplace does not have transparency. And I think transparency is going to have to filter up. And that's what our goal is. Beyond the compliance, I think XGC aims, a meaningful, enhance, the lives of local communities. We're trying to be meticulous about the chain of custody and the direct benefit to local projects. I don't think this is all about climate change. I think that this is an asset that the local communities and the countries have that other countries want, but we want to make sure that it's fair trade and that the people on the boots on the ground, is that, fairness to the farmers and the rangers and the people that are doing the work and the projects, the proper stewardship and, to motivate them to do the work.
Thank you. So over the next 5 years, let's say in 2030, what single metric will tell you that XGCERP has genuinely moved a needle in the climate space?
I think like in the next 5 years, for us, it would be probably the sub-Saharan countries. The majority of them would be using our product as the national registries for their countries, that our carbon coin or green coin is readily available in the marketplace for both local consumption. If Taylor Swift wants to fly from LA to New York in her jet, she buys so many coins to offset her trip. And then she feels good because she knows where the money's actually going to somewhere, like to a person on the ground. So I think that that's important. And so our success will be measured by, the improvements in local communities, ecotourism, education, actually planting trees, making sure that the forests are regenerated. That's our success, and growing our customer base now, as we roll out more countries. So we're very focused on South America and Africa right now.
Thank you. So I've also read somewhere that your products are audit ready. So how are you kind of balancing that? Like, how is your team balancing that when it comes to compliance and velocity?
Yes, our product is really, because it's an ERP, the standard operating procedures of ERPs, it's very easy to audit. I've been through building SOX product that were Sarbanes-Oxley compliant. So I've taken that approach with this, that this can be very simply audited. If someone said, okay, this piece of inventory, this serialized inventory, which is the tokenized inventory, came from where? And how were the calculations done? And how were the things, what changed? And what, did anyone change it? What was the whole project tracking for costs? Where all that, that's all done in the system because every project is cost. And if you think about these countries and communities are in rev share with a project developer. So they're in essence leasing land to a project developer to develop a forest or to do these projects to sell the carbon credits. So then they're in a rev share with them. So how do they know that they're not being robbed? How do they know that? It has to be always a chain of custody. And that's why the built-in audit trails in real-time reporting is critical for the oversight.
Thank you so much for sharing about XGC. I would love to know a way for people to reach out to you. Of like, do you prefer LinkedIn? Do you prefer email? So that's one. The other thing is, I know you also work as a fractional CXO. So when first-time founders pitch to you, what KPI you generally ask before deciding whether to work with them or not, and why?
Good question. Good question. So to me, it's do you solve a problem as a founder? Do you solve a problem? Or are you a solution looking for a problem to solve? I prefer always to work with people they know what the problem is. Generally, it's people who've worked in an industry. They go, I know that. I know there's a real problem here. And then they go and they're looking for ways to solve it. Then I can help them get to the point. The other one is from a KPI is customer retention rate. That's really the telling thing. It's not about dollar sales. Like I know I speak to a lot of VCs. I'll fund you when you have $1 million reoccurring revenue. The truth is, if I have $1 million reoccurring revenue, I don't need you. All respect to VCs, but if I had a monthly, really good reoccurring revenue a month, then I have to, I'll grow. It'll be organic, and I can do it without extra money. It's really at that more before the chasm that someone needs to help to get across the chasm, and that's really to me where the VCs need it on the venture early stage people, and that's where the founders. It's right now it's very difficult. I mean, almost every venture guy that you talk to is like, show me the money in your sales. But really, if you had, depending on what your product was, if I did like when we did Care Relay and we did a pilot, we got 1,000 customers and we were doing feedback loop and we gave it away for free and we were getting it. So we have no revenue. We gave it away for free because we're trying to get feedback loop and that we had 80% retention. Like people that continued on using the product and kept asking, when's an update? When's this? They were very engaged. To me, that's really telling about what the product can do and what problem it's solving if people want to use it. I don't like eyeball products that are just about eyeballs because that's, we were at that stage at one time in the tech business. Was, tell me how many eyeballs you got. And that was like how they calculated KPI. I'm not saying that. I'm talking about real customers who want to stay and are engaged in your product. So for us, at XGC, we're in a much different, with a government sale, it's a much more different thing. We have to obviously get in. Ours are going to be long-term contracts. It's a SaaS model. It's going to be pretty hard to escape us once you, that's another thing is the product escapable to another product, or are you locking the person in kind of with how you build your business model? Is it easy for them to use it? And is it easy to keep them in your loop? But, I think there's, strong retention rates is really, and building a team over time that has a deep understanding of what the customer and the product require. Like, these are really things. And I think like if guys come to me, they can reach out to me on LinkedIn. They can look me up at xgccorp.com and send me a note through there. But either way, I can build stuff for people. That's what the fractional business is. But we also have the ability to help people go on a public path at a very cost-effective way as well with what we've done. We've set up a plan with that. I have two partners. One is an expert in the public business, and the other one is a corporate lawyer who is expert in tax and public vehicles. So those are my two other partners, and between the three of us, we could help an early stage founder with some revenue actually find a path, because really investors, you have friends and family around, and then you get to the next stage where everybody asks, how do I get out? Right? That's my exit. And really, it's very difficult for guys unless they've got lots of to get to that next stage. And we can help guys get there.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I'll make sure to add all your contact details on also XGC's site in the description. So thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
I really appreciate taking the time to reach out and for the opportunity to present ourselves.